Swiftly on to our next session, which is Beyond DEI, Building Influence and Securing Opportunities. We have some special people in the room. Olaide Sadiq, who's brought untold stories to Netflix, directing and producing award-winning documentaries that put Black narratives on the global stage. Please welcome her onto the stage. Leroy Logan MBE, a founder of the Black Police Association. He's an author and a man whose life was so impactful it literally became a movie. And I was it. And our host of this session, leading this conversation is Hannah Awonuga. An award-winning cultural transformation and inclusion consultant with over 20 years of corporate experience. She specializes in inclusive leadership. Please come onto the stage. Give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Sorry, Mickael's here as well.
Ah, fantastic.
He was looking for you, but we wasn't sure. Okay. Make some noise for Mickael Sylla, please, ladies and gentlemen. Managing principal at Capco, whose career shows what it looks like to thrive in industries where representation is rare, but leadership is crucial. Give a round of applause to our panelists, guys.
Okay, so again, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Awesome. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Hannah Awonuga. I am the CEO and founder of Inclusive Foundations Program, which is a D&I practice focused on supporting medium-sized organizations. I have 20 years experience in corporate. I spent 18 years in banking and done a lot of work around DEI. So I spent my time as the head of DEI and group head of DEI in both financial services and real estate. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation today, but one of the things I want to do, just conscious of the previous conversation that we have had, I want to focus this conversation on practical tips. I want you all to be able to take things away, things that you can implement straight away, things that you can go back to your business with. So we're going to make it really actionable. We're going to make it things that you can actually take today and use when you leave this place. So I have Mickael, Leroy and Olaide, and so I'd like you to firstly just introduce yourselves, please, and then we'll get into the questions.
Thank you.
Mickael?
So hi everyone, happy to be here among you. So I'm Mickael Sylla. I'm managing principal at Capco. So it's a global consultancy firm with 7,000 people, 30 offices worldwide, and I'm specialized in mainly digital and regulatory transformation programs. So that's what I've been doing over the past 10 years at Capco. And before that, was also in consulting in France, and I guess we'll get to that also in a sec in terms of DE&I. And before that, I was in Bristol in the aerospace industry. So nice to meet you guys. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leroy Logan. I'm a retired police officer. As already been said, part of my life story was put on a BBC series called Small Axe, where John Boyega played me, and he got a Golden Globe for doing so. And I still haven't seen the damn thing, but anyway. Hopefully I'll be seeing him soon. And you'll be saying, sorry, uncle. Anyway, I was one of the founder members of the Black Police Association, long before this term DEI sort of ever existed. But it's the same thing, having truth to power and speaking from our own platform and making our own constitution, our own terms of reference, and showing the operational and strategic imperative for doing so. Since retiring 12 years ago, I'm still involved in public service, and I've written an award-winning autobiography, and I'm currently writing a children's book on the transition from primary to secondary. So I'm gainfully employed.
Hello everyone, my name's Olaide Sadiq and I'm a director in TV, specialising in documentary. And I've been in the industry for almost 9 years. I've worked with lots of different channels, lots of different talent, emergency services, institutions, so it's quite a broad range. Actually collaborated with BYP a few years ago. I produced a documentary with Will I Am, and then I think he went on to become a speaker here, which was really exciting, good collaboration we had. And I've recently finished up on a documentary called Grenfell Uncovered, just for Netflix, which was sort of obviously quite a heavy one, but telling the story of the tragedy, and that went on to do really well and reached our global audiences. So it was really something that we were all really proud of, given the nature of the story. So, but happy to be here to talk all things DEI, and hopefully in a positive way.
Excellent. So thank you so much. And we've got such a broad range of kind of backgrounds and experiences. So hopefully we'll get, some really interesting perspectives. So the first question, and we have heard a lot about, kind of the backlash of DEI or the regression of some organisations when it comes to diversity and inclusion. But what I wanted to ask you is, in this current climate where it does seem like opportunities are more limited and access is scarce, can you share an experience where you have almost overcome that impact and where you've had to kind of push through and manage that situation?
Okay, I'll start with me getting the job on Grenfell. So naturally, everyone will be aware that 2020 was a very heavy year for people of colour, and I think a lot happened, and I think maybe as a knee-jerk reaction, a lot of companies started to invest more in DEI, and my industry, TV, was one of them, and I think there was a lot of opportunities for black talent, and unfortunately, I would say in the past 2 to 3 years, I kind of started to decline quite a lot, and when I finished working at a company, obviously that nature of TV, you go from one company to other, and for fixed-term contracts. And when I was in the mix to doing this job, I felt like I was one of few diverse names in the mix. And maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, thinking I wasn't going to get the job as well. It's very easy when you sort of start to see diversity declining to maybe go where you think you're going to get more of a chance. But I felt like part of me wanted to sort of stick it out and just sort of challenge decision makers to take a chance on me, but not look at it as taking a chance. So I just sort of put that in writing, which was in a way where I was willing to not get the job, but I was going to say what I wanted to say in an email about how I felt about the landscape and how I felt about my skill set, my opportunities, and what I could bring to the table in a way that was probably a bit of a risk to take, but it paid off because it was a job I was sure actually I wasn't going to get after doing that, because I wanted sort of production companies and broadcasters to understand that, black talent in TV it's talent to invest in, not just black talent, but diverse talent in general. And yeah, I made that myself clear with doing that, which I think a lot of people don't do, because usually if you speak out, you feel like you're then sort of blacklisted or something. But then after doing that, a few weeks later, they found out I got the job, and was able to build quite a diverse team after that. And that's something I'm quite proud of. And I think that's something that in an industry or in a space where that black talent and diverse talent was declining, I sort of took a risk, sent a punchy email and hoped for the best. And then, yeah, it went from there.
Amazing. Thank you. Leroy?
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm in the public sector, but one of my last jobs in the Met Police was the Olympic coordination team for the 2012 Games. So we worked with a lot of corporates. But I think, for me, what I alluded to earlier about setting up the Black Police Association, it's very clear that the organisation didn't get it. I mean, it needed to get culture change. So we had to work collaboratively. And the important thing was, it wasn't just, okay, it's the BPA is only for black people. We had to ensure that we got good allyship and good sponsors in the organisation to be our advocates for change. So we were willing to speak up for each other and speak up for ourselves, but also we had our allies. And I think that's one of the most practical things to do, to try and get an ally who's strategically placed, who's in a position to really make changes and will run with the cause on a sustainable way. And I think it also helps if you get pushback, because anytime you have culture change, you're going to get pushback. And people want to undermine you. Invariably, they'll try and do it that way. Can't be trusted with money, and you're sexually promiscuous, and all sorts of things. I've been investigated by the Met, not for those things, I might add, but all the same, it was the same sort of pushback. So you've got to anticipate that you're going to be on someone's target. Because when you speak up, not just for yourself, but for others, there is that tendency they see you as a troublemaker. But please, you need to have allyship and that collaboration to ensure that you're not isolated. Because there's this thing that's still there, regardless of the organization type, is divide and rule. They will come amongst you and start saying, that person is not quite with your cause, and we'll speak to that person instead of you. That's the sort of thing. Don't take it personally. If you're clear on your purpose and your calling, to how you want to make change for the better for yourself, and especially if you're leading on DEI or you're part of that department, please don't let them undermine your intelligence and grind you down, because that's one of the biggest things they do. So you have to be resilient as well.
So from my perspective, the way I see things is effectively your career is like a marathon, and instruments like DE&I are, for example, cheering you up as you progress through the marathon. Go on, yeah. Providing some water, or within the last miles, sort of cheering you up once you completely run down, legs, feet, etc., to get you over the line. So that's one way, effectively, of doing it. So D&I. But if there's not that, at the end of the day, you control and you control your trajectory. You prep your marathon up front. You understand where there'll be slopes, ups, downs, and etc. And you prepare yourself up front with support from allies, for example, who will be cheering you up as you progress. The other thing also that I wanted to highlight is there's not only one path as part of that marathon. There are different paths. So to tie this sort of to my career trajectory, so French, born and raised in France, originally from Guinea, so kind of more French and Sierra Leone. On my mother's side, more English. So we used to come over to London quite a lot while I was growing up. And what I really liked about UK, or basically US kind of like way of thinking, is that things are more geared towards your ability to demonstrate what you're capable of, and potentially, the ability to get, the role you want, etc. Obviously, there's some barriers that we're currently discussing, and it's not, black or white. So my aim growing up, graduating from engineering school, was to come and work in the UK, which I did in aerospace. I started in aerospace industry in Bristol for 3.5 years, where I've worked in aerospace, did a lot of interesting things, but effectively quickly realized that within that environment, I would not necessarily, my marathon I would be struggling quite a lot as part of that marathon. We also discussed the importance of network earlier on, so basically building network, keeping in contact with a number of individuals. Back then I was in charge of the people doing their internships there, and we kept contact, and at a specific point of time that person basically when I was kind of like in a dead end from my perspective, introduced me to someone within financial services, because that was also an objective for me, to move away from aerospace to financial services, leveraging my expertise. And it turns out that the director at that point of time in consulting world was from African ethnic background, and things basically started to flow from there. So that's how I ultimately overcome this.
Brilliant, thank you. So we heard self-advocacy, so believing in yourself, batting for yourself, making sure that you are in a position where you can actually articulate your skills. I think that's really important. Collaboration. So you talked about the fact that you don't have to do it on your own. So how do you collaborate with people? And then capabilities, really being comfortable with your capabilities, making sure that you are confident in the work that you do, so that you can articulate that really, really well. So thank you for that. I suppose from my perspective, I would just say that you don't always have to go up in your career. Sometimes we are fixated on wanting the promotion. And then when we know that access is limited, or we know that there's challenges, sometimes the best career moves I've made have been sideways moves. And so thinking about adding breadth to yourself is something that you should be really thinking about. So it's not always that you want to get promoted. Sometimes you want to move sideways, so to give yourself more experience, credibility, and breadth. So we'll move on, because I know we are fixed for time. So you all champion DEI in your own fields, and we have talked about kind of how competitive it is, how limited the opportunity is, which I'm not sure I believe, but we'll keep going. How have you carved out your own career trajectories? You talked a little bit about advocacy and collaboration, but specifically, like, how have you broken through barriers? And Leroy, I'll start with you, because obviously you're in an industry, you are in an industry that is predominantly white, male. So how did you get up the ranks through the barriers?
Yeah, before I answer the question, I do apologise. I've got to leave in the next 15, 20 minutes. The reason being, I fell off my bike on Monday, a pedal cycle. And maybe I'm getting too old for this pedal cycle. So I'm walking wounded at the moment, and I've got an appointment for my doctor to sort of bandage me up. So I do apologise for that. In response to really surviving in a white-dominated... remember, the organisation I was a very toxic masculinity, very militaristic. So in a lot of ways, I had to show I was excellent. Because, that's one of the best deterrents against any form of ism. Excellence is the best deterrent. So I had to be twice as good, articulate, intelligently and physically, because a certain amount of policing is very hands-on, as you can imagine. So you have to show your capability around that. Found that the networks, like sports, was one of the biggest things. Oh, he's all right, he must be all right, because, he's good at football or boxing or whatever. I'm not saying anyone has to go and do those sports, but I found that I had to be excellent on all fronts. And that's one of the things that was very clear to me. And also, I had to have a really good, culturally competent mentor. That person has to have, not necessarily in the same organisation, or even in the same generic area of working, but that person really needs to be able to give you that helicopter view of, okay, this is the path you want, these are the things you read, the milestones you need to set yourself, and more importantly, if you get disappointment, how do you manage that? If they're blocking you, how you get around that? Because, as I said, regardless of the type of organisation, the themes are exactly the same. And the sustainability bit. So, similar to what you're saying about running a marathon, you need to be, putting in the time, and because, unfortunately, we are in a very quick fix, immediate gratification type of culture, social media and otherwise. But this sort of work, I'm also based on a charity I set up 25 years ago called Void Youth. And it's one of the few black educational programs that's linked with the national curriculum. So year 9s, 14, 15, they actually get UCAS points set for their GCSEs and A-levels. So, and I've seen how we have to ensure that they have to set clear goals, understand that they've got to manage their expectation, but prove their self by excellence. Don't just turn up and think anything goes. You have to be knowing that you're good enough and even better than your contemporaries. And anticipate these things that they're going to come throwing at you, just, because we've even heard from the previous workshop where they were talking about, they choose the people that look like them. So if you've got a predominantly white organisation, they're not going to choose you unless you are showing that you're going to add value to the organisation. And as I said, with a mentor, preferably in the organisation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be there, it sets your contingencies as well, because, again, not every time that door is going to work, because sometimes that door slams shut and you can't see another door. Maybe you have to make your own door. And in an entrepreneurial world, there are so many ways in which people are carving out their own path, their own road, to say, listen, I don't have to be demoralised by this. I've seen it in our young people at Voyage, some of them in their late 30s now. So I know that this works. But you know, education is a key, really important, because those young people have shown to me, and there are 1,000 young people we've worked with over the last 25 years, that this works.
Excellent. And you know what, I think it's really important that absolutely we should be excellent, but excellent can be exhausting, right? And so how do you strike the balance of being excellent whilst also preserving your mental health and your well-being in the workplace? Because our white counterparts are not working 10 times harder. But I'm conscious of your time. So what I want to do is, because you mentioned mentorship, and that's the next question. So we'll move straight on to mentorship. And Olaide, I'll come to you, because I think we talk a lot about mentorship. We don't talk enough about sponsorship. So I'd love either way, either mentorship or sponsorship. But first, you know, hopefully we don't need to define what it is, but a real high-level overview of, you know, what you take mentorship to be and how it's been impacted in your career.
Yeah, so I've had quite a number of mentors over the course of my TV career, and I don't think I'd be where I am now without mentorship. And I guess sponsorship, I kind of see them as sort of two sides of the same coin, because companies need to take a chance on you, whether you look the part or don't. They're sort of investing in you by hiring you, or investing in you by making you a part of their team or production. And obviously the nature of TV is that anything can become public. If you work on a TV show, whether it's for Netflix or ITV, you become part of that brand for that set period of time. So people hire you with the basis that, you know, they're investing in you and you're going to represent them for a certain period of time. With mentorship, for me, I've had very different mentors. I've had white male mentors, I've had women of color mentors, I've had different mentors, and they've all given me something slightly different. Obviously with TV, it's a predominantly white industry, predominantly I would say privately educated as well. I think for me, I've had mentors that have allowed me to embrace who I am and what I come with. I can't suddenly have gone to private school. I didn't. I comfortably went to school in South London, very character building, but yeah. But I think, and I love my experience, and I think I lean into what makes me me, and I've had mentors that have allowed me to feel comfortable doing that, because I think when I started working in TV, I was very aware of being the only person there, or very aware that I sounded very different to everyone else, I looked very different to everyone else, and it's only when I started having mentorship that they were kind of like, yeah, just lean into that, that's okay, and you'll go where people kind of embrace that. And I think I've been lucky enough to, because I spoke to lots of people who will just say, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself, and it's a kind of a throwaway statement. And I think with mentors who are in your industry and have got to that level that you're trying to get to, who are kind of empowering you to lean into what they say is your superpower, lean into what makes you different. The more times I heard it, the more I started to believe it, and I think that's what's guided me through, you know, lots of different hurdles over the years, but also being comfortable, being, you know, from where I'm from, being comfortable with my background, being comfortable with how I speak, my weird interests, nothing creepy weird, just like, but just like, you know, I don't need to fit into everyone's mold. I kind of have my own, and people, if people like that, they'll come to you. So I feel like mentorship has definitely helped me see myself better, I think, and be confident in what I bring to the table.
Excellent. Thank you. Mickael, do you have a view on
yes,
mentorship?
Yes, I do have a view on that, and actually the workplace is, and I'm going to use another analogy, but the workplace is a game, and for that game you need to know and learn the rules, and you need a mentor who's gone through that journey ahead of you for him or her to ultimately get you to know or teach you these rules. Obviously, keeping your own sort of character, mold, etc. But there's a number of rules that, fortunately or unfortunately, that we need to follow in order to progress within any organization, any firm. So that's been very helpful for me from a mentorship perspective. And I remember at the very beginning, he was saying, "Yeah, but Mickael, you play checkers." And I was like, "What do you mean? You play checkers, you need to play chess." And I was like, well, I don't understand back then. So 10 years ago, checkers, Google, blah, blah. Oh, okay, checkers, chess. Okay, got it now. And basically over the years, I have, learned those rules that differ from a firm to another. Actually, that's why it's really key during interviews, etc., to understand whether you'd fit within that organization, with discussing with people, etc. And progressively made my way up, starting to play checkers, but ultimately ending up playing chess, not with golden sets as of now, not partner whatsoever, but ultimately, yes, most important thing is leveraging mentorship to progress within your career trajectory in that respect.
Brilliant, thank you. And
Can I give a good case?
You got the
I know, but I might have to leave with on this one. But because I think, again, it's around the solution focus. So Voyage has been going since 2001. In 2004, we had a young man called Simeon Brown. So some of you might have heard of him. He's Guardian journo, and he's gone on to be a Channel 4 representative. When I knew that young man when he was 14, 15. And how, he's a remarkable young man, but no more remarkable than the others. The key thing was he was understanding that the place he was going to pitch his tent, that was his goal in journalism. He needed to be land running and be prepared to go outside the call of duty. So it wasn't like, it's 9 to 5, weekends off. He was willing to take as many of those assignments, which most people think it's going to be. So it's when he was in The Guardian, he had a really good style of operating, so that when he was, it started with internships and so forth, getting an appreciation of his craft and apprenticeship. And as a result of that, he went alongside some people who said, right, like everything, it's not so much who you know is what you know about those people, Move alongside those people to say, okay, if you hear of any stories. And he's brilliant like that. And it's about managing relationships. How are you going to get the best out of those relationships? So I was still chair of the BPA at the time. Leroy, is there any jobs, anything? He was always on it. He was always on it. And as a result of that, he's not perfect. He's still got his challenges. But the main thing is he understands those skills and abilities that developed. And I'll end by saying this. He learned, he earned, and then he's returned. And he still gives back to those young people. We're still running our leadership program. In fact, we've got 3 that are accredited by edXcel, and he knows the importance of giving back. Because I don't know about you, but giving back has more meaning for me than say, right, I've got all this and accolade that, and John Boyega still owes me a sight of the Golden Globe, all that sort. No, for me, it's giving back, helping people to know, and seeing those young people develop from quite naive 14, 15-year-olds to some extent, to then go on to get some doctors. We weren't doing it to get people in the police service, but we wanted them to know what's their calling, how they want to do it, and so they were like a sponge. They were learning, and then they start to earn stuff, and then they return in stuff.
Brilliant.
I do apologise. Forgive me, but I need to hobble to the tube station now if I can't get a cab. And but it's been really cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
And all the best.
So, just to recap on that. So you talked about authenticity, and there's a saying that I say quite a lot, which is "be yourself with skill." So the idea is that there's a theme here because I'm from South London as well, and the South London in me often comes out at home, but when when I'm at work, I'm just a refined version of who I am. I'm not a different version. I don't change who I am because authenticity is important. But that refinement is when you be yourself with skill. And chess and checkers, that really resonates. And to me, what you're just telling us is that we should be strategic. Our careers are our businesses. I treat my career like a business. And so be strategic. So questions. We have time for 2 questions, and so I would love to get the questions if they've come through.
Yes, thank you for everyone who sent in their questions. Luckily, some of them have already been answered, but I'll just pick out 2. The first is, with the current political climate, what do you see, or how do you see both DEI and allyship changing in the future? Do you think the trajectory will remain the same, or do you think there'll be a shift?
I think there'll be a shift. I'm quite a positive, try to be a positive thinker. I do think that the world is in a very weird place right now. I think it's uncomfortable what's been allowed to happen in lots of spaces right now. But I do think that resistance also grows. So if there's a growing ugliness in this country or all across the world, which I think there is, I think most people I know and most people we all identify with are good people. And I think that the good still rises, and I don't mean that in a cheesy way. And I think that a lot of decision makers recognize when change is needed, and they might take their time. But I think in the face of what is a lot of ugliness right now, I think that penny will drop for a lot of people. And I do think, in the same way we've had waves of allyship and DEI and opportunities, I think those waves will come back. And I think it's naturally, it comes in peaks and troughs, and I think it probably will still be that way. But I think good change is still coming, and I don't think DEI or opportunities for diverse talent is going to fall off a cliff. I think everyone's quite resilient. A lot of people who've been in their industries for 20, 30 years have seen this happen time and time again. So I'm confident that things will pick back up.
I would just say, don't get hung up on language. Language has always changed. If people are from HR here, you used to call personnel, and then you called it HR, and now we call it people. So the language will absolutely evolve. We will not call it DEI. I don't use DEI actually anymore, but the work will still remain the same. And so if you're committed to the work, actually, it doesn't have as big an impact as it's being made to feel.
And the next question is 2-pronged. So Leroy kind of touched on it when he spoke about giving back. So for the Black leaders in the room, how do you identify and support and help build the next generation of talent? And for those who are aspiring, what are the key skills that are vital for them to stand out in this market?
So, well, in consulting, so I see a lot of them, a lot of young professionals very eager to get a good career. So my objective at my level, modest level, is to ensure that they're equipped with that, with the rules I was referring to earlier on, i.e. understand that when you start working, make sure you've got visibility on what you're doing, make sure you get closer to the right people, basically, the right horses, between brackets, and make sure that you do not tie too much on promotion, but also more specifically on how you can grow and build your own path. And obviously, as my analogy to the marathon, if it's not your path, you can take another. So that's how, on a day-to-day basis, I try my best to support individuals within Capco as well as outside Capco, as I'm also mentoring as part of BYP individuals.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been a great panel, great discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.